Hana had always believed there were worse things than death. Standing on an auction block in a white silk dress, wrists bound with red rope, she discovered she'd been right. The underground auction house sprawled beneath a legitimate art gallery in Gangnam, all velvet curtains and crystal chandeliers. Men in tailored suits examined the lots with clinical detachment, champagne flutes dangling from manicured fingers. The air reeked of expensive cologne and cheaper morality. Hana kept her chin raised, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her cry. She scanned the crowd, a man in his 60s with liver-spotted hands, a younger one with cruel eyes, another whose wedding ring caught the light as he raised his paddle. Minjun needs surgery, she reminded herself. Her 14-year-old brother's confused face when the debt collectors came, the way he'd asked why she was packing a bag. Lot 17, the auctioneer announced. Opening bid, 1 billion won. The numbers climbed. 2 billion, 5, 7. At 9 billion, the room settled into a tense standoff between the old man and a corporate type who kept adjusting his Rolex. Then the temperature plummeted. Hana felt the shift before she saw him. Conversations died mid-word. Every head turned toward the entrance. He stood in the doorway like winter personified. Tall, wrapped in an immaculate black suit, the man surveyed the room with eyes the color of a soul storm. Dark, merciless, beautiful in the way a blade is beautiful. His face could have been carved from ice, all sharp lines and colder angles. Black hair swept back from a face too young to hold such lethal authority. He didn't sit, didn't acknowledge the auctioneer's greeting. He simply walked to the back of the room, hands sliding into his pockets, and watched her. Those winter storm eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment the rest of the room ceased to exist. She saw something flicker in his gaze, recognition or calculation, something that made her skin prickle. 9 billion going once, the auctioneer called, clearly unnerved. 10 billion. The voice cut through the room like a blade through silk. Deep, controlled, absolutely certain. The old man lowered his paddle. The corporate type blanched. No one dared counter. Sold, lot 17 to Mr. Kang. Kang-Dae. The name whispered through the crowd like wind through dead leaves. The Ice King. Seoul's most dangerous ghost, half-legitimate tech CEO, half-underworld legend. Hana's knees nearly buckled. 1 week earlier, her world had been different. Not good, but hers. 3 men in dark suits at their door. Debt collectors with concrete faces. Her father on his knees, sobbing. Once respectable. Now a shell weeping on cheap linoleum. The debt has been sold, the lead collector said. They're willing to accept alternative payment. His eyes settled on Hana, then on Minjun. I'll go. Her voice was steadier than her hands. Whatever you need, just leave my brother alone. Her father's shame filled the room, her mother's broken apologies. Minjun finally understanding, reaching for her. She'd kissed his forehead, smoothed his hair. I'm going to work abroad for a while. When I come back, everything will be better. The lie tasted like ashes. The Mercedes Maybach's leather seats were softer than anything Hana had ever touched. She sat rigid, trying not to think about what came next. Kang-Dae occupied the other side, separated by 2 feet that felt like miles. He worked on a tablet, not once glancing her direction. She might as well have been invisible. She tried to speak. Please, Nothing. Not even a flicker. Jin Woo, the bodyguard up front, caught her eyes in the rearview mirror. Something like pity crossed his scarred face. Somehow that was worse than Kang-Dae's indifference. The car glided through Seoul. Gangnam's neon-drenched streets gave way to Hanamdong's quieter wealth. Hana watched her city scroll past, the late-night food carts, the subway stations, the normal life already becoming a memory. The building was modern glass and steel reaching toward the sky. The elevator required Kang-Dae's palm print, then iris scan. Security that said, "This man has enemies." The penthouse occupied the entire top floor. Beautiful the way museums are beautiful, meant to be observed, not lived in. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Seoul like a kingdom. Modern furniture in blacks and whites, every line clean, every surface unmarred. Not a single photograph, not a book left open, not one sign of human warmth. Kang-Dae disappeared into his office. A door closed with quiet finality. Jin-woo cleared his throat. "I'll show you around." The tour was clinical. Master bedroom, Kang-Dae's, absolutely off limits. Guest bedroom, hers, decorated in impersonal elegance, notably lacking a lock. Kitchen, fully stocked. Living area with impossible windows and a grand piano that looked unplayed. "And that," Jin-woo said, gesturing to a closed door, "you don't enter. Ever." Through the brief crack, Hana glimpsed computer monitors, file cabinets, security feeds. Then Jin-woo pulled it shut. "He'll call for you when he wants you," Jin-woo said. Not unkindly, but not kindly. Best to just cooperate. Then she was alone, silence pressing down like physical weight. An hour later. "Come." She found him by the windows, soul spread beneath him like conquered territory. He held out a folder. "Your contract." Legal language, deliberately obscuring, but clear enough. "Be available when summoned. Don't leave without permission. Don't contact family. Don't ask questions. In exchange, debt cleared, brother's medical expenses paid, monthly stipend." "What exactly do you want from me?" Kang-Dae circled her slowly. She forced herself not to turn, feeling like prey. "Your father destroyed something precious to me. I bought you to destroy something precious to him. You're a living reminder of his failure. A punishment that will last as long as I decide. I'm not his property to take. I'm a person. You stopped being a person." He moved in front of her, close enough she could see the absolute zero in his eyes. "When I paid 10 billion won for you, you're an asset, a weapon, nothing more. Then use me as one." The words surprised them both. "But don't expect me to break easily?" Something flickered across his face. "Pour me a drink. Whiskey. 2 fingers neat." Her hands trembled as she crossed to the bar, poured exactly 2 fingers, brought it to him. Their fingers brushed as he took the glass. The contact was electric. For a fraction of a second, his mask slipped, something dark and hungry flashing in those winter eyes. Then the ice returned, harder than before. "Go to your room. I'll summon you when I need you." "And if I refuse?" He leaned in, his breath warm against her ear. "Then your brother will need more than surgery. Do we understand each other?" Hana fled before he could see the tears building. She woke to designer clothes laid out, tailored pieces in her exact size. Breakfast waited in the kitchen, still warm. No sign of who'd made it, when, how they'd entered while she slept. Kang-Dae was in the living area, immaculate in charcoal, reading financial reports while conducting a phone call in flawless English. His voice was different in English, warmer, more animated. A performance, she realized. This was his legitimate face. He covered the mouthpiece. "I'll be at the office until evening. Stay in the penthouse. Jin-woo is outside if you need anything." A pause. "Don't make me regret paying so much for you." Then he was gone. Hana frantically searched her phone. Kang-Dae Industries, tech conglomerate, market cap in the trillions, holdings in everything from semiconductors to AI. Photos at charity galas, shaking hands with politicians. The legitimate world had no idea about his other empire. Then she found it, buried pages deep. 10 years old. Tech startup CEO found dead in apparent suicide. Kang Hyun-woo, 45, discovered in his office following allegations of patent infringement by competitor Daehan Technologies. A hostile corporate war, lawsuits, smear campaigns, a small tech firm crushed by a larger competitor, her father's company, the CEO who'd hanged himself rather than face ruin. The teenage son left behind, Kang-Dae, then 17. Understanding hit like a physical blow. This wasn't random. This was revenge, precise and calculated, a decade in the making. Her father had destroyed his father, so Kang-Dae had destroyed her father's empire, piece by piece, and now he'd taken his daughter. Kang-Dae returned at exactly 8 p.m., carrying bags from a restaurant, whose name she recognized from magazines she'd never been able to afford. Sit. Eat. The domestic normalcy was surreal. They sat across from each other, expensive takeout between them, the city lights painting them in neon and shadow. Hana watched him, the slight tension in his jaw, the way his fingers gripped his chopsticks just a fraction too tight. A man carrying ghosts. Your father, she said quietly. The article said he... The chopstick snapped in his grip. He set the broken pieces down with deliberate care. You've been doing homework. I needed to understand why. My father built everything from nothing. Your father's company crushed him with lawsuits, stole his patents, destroyed his reputation with accusations he couldn't afford to fight. He hanged himself in his office. I was 17. I found him. Hana's breath caught. I watched my mother waste away from grief. She died 2 years later, heartbroken, spirit broken. Your father took my family. So I took his empire, piece by piece. And now I've taken his daughter. Poetic, don't you think? My father is a broken man who can barely look at himself in the mirror, Hana said softly. Whatever he did to you, he's already been destroyed by it. Kang-Dae stood abruptly, the chair scraping. He loomed over her, all controlled violence. You think that's enough? You think his self-inflicted guilt compares to what he took from me? No. Hana stood too, refusing to cower. But I'm not his property to take. I'm not a thing you can use to hurt him. I'm a person, Kang-Dae, a person who did nothing to you except be born to the wrong father. His hand moved. She flinched, but it only reached toward her face, hovering near her cheek, almost tender. For a heartbeat, she thought he might touch her gently. Then he caught himself. His hand dropped. The ice returned. You're whatever I say you are, he said, and walked away. In her bedroom, Hana finally allowed herself to process everything. The revenge, the tragedy, the impossible situation. She understood Kang-Dae's pain. God help her, she even understood the revenge. But she refused to be a passive victim. If she was going to survive this, she needed to find the cracks in his armor. The moment when their fingers touched. The almost tender gesture. The flash of something human beneath the ice. He'd bought her to break her, but she wouldn't break. She'd make him see her, not as her father's daughter, not as a weapon, but as Hana, a person. It was dangerous. Men like Kang-Dae didn't suddenly develop compassion. But she had nothing left to lose except her humanity, and that she would not surrender. Late that night, she heard something from his office. Glass breaking. A muffled sound that might have been a curse or pain. Then silence. She pressed her ear to her door, listening to the vast emptiness. The Ice King, alone in his empire, surrounded by ghosts. She understood, perhaps for the first time, that she wasn't the only prisoner in this gilded cage. That knowledge should have brought comfort. Instead, it terrified her. Because if they were both prisoners, if they were both broken by the sins of their fathers, what hope did either of them have of escaping this alive? The first week passed in a routine so precise it felt choreographed. Kang-Dae left at 6 a.m. sharp, returned at 8 p.m. Some evenings he summoned Hana to eat with him in tense silence. Other days he ignored her completely, and she existed as a ghost in his home. Decorative, silent, occasionally acknowledged. Hana learned the rhythm of captivity. The sound of the elevator at dawn. The particular quiet of the penthouse when she was truly alone. The way the city lights painted patterns on the ceiling at night while she lay awake, counting the hours until she could claim she'd survived another day. Jin Woo became her lifeline to humanity. The bodyguard brought her books, novels she'd mentioned wanting to read years ago, before university became unaffordable. He made small talk when Kang-Dae was at the office, careful conversations that never quite crossed into friendship, but held more warmth than anything else in her new world. He wasn't always like this, Jin Woo said one afternoon, unprompted. They were in the kitchen, Hana making tea, Jin Woo ostensibly checking the security feeds. The boss, I mean. When I first met him, he was 19. Hungry kid with nothing but rage and ambition. Smart as hell, scary as hell, but there was still something human in there. What happened? Hana asked quietly. Jin Woo's scarred face creased. Revenge. It ate everything else. Hana began testing boundaries in small ways. She rearranged the living room furniture, just slightly, nothing dramatic, but enough to mark her presence. Kang-Dae noticed but said nothing. She cooked meals without being asked, leaving a plate for him on evenings when he worked late in his office. He always ate it, never thanked her. But the empty plates appeared in the sink, rinsed, which felt like its own acknowledgement. She discovered the grand piano wasn't just decorative. One restless afternoon, she sat at the bench and played, rusty, imperfect renditions of pieces she'd learned in childhood. Chopin mostly, nocturnes that matched her melancholy. From his office, Kang-Dae paused. She couldn't see him, but she felt the quality of the silence change, knew he was listening. He never told her to stop. The first real crack appeared on a Thursday evening. Kang-Dae came home at his usual time, but something was off. He moved differently, tense, wound tight, dangerous. Hana saw it immediately, blood on his shirt cuff, stark against the white fabric. Not his blood. Too dark, already drying. She gasped before she could stop herself. Kang-Dae's eyes snapped to her, and for the first time since the auction he looked almost self-conscious. Not ashamed exactly, but aware, seeing himself through her eyes and not entirely liking the reflection. He disappeared into his room without a word. When he emerged 20 minutes later, changed into casual clothes, Hana had poured 2 whiskeys. She handed him one, surprised by her own boldness. "Did you kill someone today?" The question came out steadier than she felt. Kang-Dae took the glass, studied the amber liquid. "Would it matter to you if I did?" Hana considered. Really considered. "Yes. Because I need to know if the man who owns me is a monster or just a man doing monstrous things. There's a difference." He didn't answer. But he didn't leave either. They sat in the dim living room, him drinking, her pretending to read, and for an hour it felt almost peaceful, almost normal, as if they were 2 people instead of captor and captive, as if the blood on his cuff had been metaphorical instead of literal. "You'll attend a charity gala with me tomorrow night." Kang-Dae's announcement came over breakfast, one of the rare mornings he hadn't already left for the office. Hana looked up from her coffee, startled. "You'll be introduced as my companion," he continued, not meeting her eyes. "You'll smile, be gracious, and help me maintain my reputation as a respectable CEO. Can you do that?" It wasn't really a question, but Hana nodded anyway. "Yes." Something flickered across his face. Approval, relief. It vanished before she could name it. "A team will arrive at 4 to prepare you." The team arrived precisely at 4, with the efficiency of a military operation. 3 women and 1 man, all carrying enough equipment to stock a salon. They descended on Hana with professional detachment, transforming her like she was a canvas instead of a person. The gown was midnight blue, designer, probably worth more than a year of her father's former salary. It hugged her curves before flowing to the floor, a slit rising dangerously high on one thigh. The jewelry came in an armed case, diamonds that caught the light like trapped stars. When they finished, Hana barely recognized herself in the mirror. Sophisticated, expensive, untouchable, someone else entirely. Kang-Dae was waiting in the living room, devastating in a black tuxedo that fit like it had been tailored on his body. Which it probably had been. He looked up as she entered and froze. Just for a second. Just long enough for something raw and hungry to flash across his face before the ice returned. "You'll do," he said, voice rougher than usual. In the car, she caught him looking. Again and again, his eyes sliding to her and away, jaw tight, fingers drumming an unconscious rhythm against his thigh. The air between them felt charged, dangerous, like the moment before lightning strikes. The Shilla Hotel ballroom dripped with wealth and power. Crystal chandeliers, champagne flowing like water, souls elite in their finest plumage. Business tycoons, politicians whose faces Hana recognized from news broadcasts, celebrities posing for cameras. Every eye tracked them as they entered. Specifically tracked her, the mysterious woman on Kang-Dae's arm. His hand settled on her lower back, possessive and warm, through the thin fabric of her gown. He guided her through the crowd with practiced ease, and Hana realized she was seeing yet another version of him. The charming CEO, warm and witty, working the room like a politician. The Ice King melted in public. Just another performance, just another mask. She followed his lead, playing the devoted companion. Smiling, laughing at appropriate moments, letting him introduce her to partners and rivals whose names she'd never remember. Then Lee Sang-min appeared. Hana felt Kang-Dae tense before she saw the man. Younger than most of the crowd, arrogant in an expensive suit, with eyes that assessed her like merchandise. "Kang," Sang-min said, too familiar, too knowing. "You always had exquisite taste. Where did you find this jewel?" Kang-Dae pulled Hana closer, the gesture immediate and possessive. "She's not for discussion, Lee." Of course. Sang-min's smile didn't reach his eyes. "But you wouldn't deny me one dance with such beauty? Just a dance. Professional courtesy." "No. Flat. Final." But Hana saw an opportunity, a chance to prove she was useful beyond being a trophy on his arm. "I'd be delighted," she said, before Kang-Dae could refuse again. His fingers tightened on her waist, almost painfully. She met his eyes, trying to communicate "trust me," and stepped into Sang-min's offered hand. From across the room, Kang-Dae watched them dance. Hana felt his gaze like a physical weight, burning between her shoulder blades. Sang-min was a skilled dancer, smooth and practiced, but his hands wandered just slightly too low, too possessive. "So tell me," he murmured, "what's it like warming the Ice King's bed? I imagine it's rather cold." Hana smiled, saccharine. "I wouldn't know. We have a professional relationship." "Professional?" Sang-min laughed. "Is that what we're calling it? I heard he paid quite a sum for you. 10 billion won. Must be exhausting, being worth that much." He was trying to humiliate her, to make her react. Instead, Hana leaned closer, as if sharing a confidence. "Between you and me, I think he overpaid. But men with egos like his often do, don't they? Like with that Busan port deal I heard you discussing earlier. 15% under market? Risky. Unless you know something the rest of the market doesn't." Sang-min's eyes sharpened. He'd been drinking, showing off, and hadn't realized she'd been listening when he'd bragged to his associates. "You're a clever little thing, aren't you?" Clever enough. The song ended. Hana stepped back, curtsied slightly. "Thank you for the dance." Kang-Dae materialized beside her instantly, his grip on her arm just shy of painful as he steered her toward the balcony, away from the crowd, into the cold night air. "What the hell was that?" His voice was low, dangerous. Hana faced him calmly. "He told me about the Busan port deal. He's planning to undercut your bid by 15%. You're welcome. Kang-Dae stared at her. Conflict warring across his face. Anger, admiration, something darker and more complicated. You can't keep me locked in a gilded cage and expect me to be useless to you, Hana continued. I'm not stupid. If I'm going to be your possession, let me be an asset, not just a trophy. He stepped closer, crowding her against the balcony railing. His hand came up, cupping her jaw, thumb tracing her cheekbone. You're supposed to be my revenge, a broken doll. Why won't you break? Hana didn't flinch from his touch, didn't look away from those winter storm eyes. Because you need me not to. You want to punish my father, but you don't want to become the kind of man who destroys innocent people. If I break, you become the monster you're afraid you already are. The words hit their mark. She saw it in the way his breath caught, the way his thumb traced her lower lip with devastating gentleness. The air between them charged with electricity. He leaned in, breath mingling with hers, and for a heartbeat, Hana thought he would kiss her. Wanted him to kiss her, despite everything, despite the impossible situation. Then he pulled back sharply, releasing her like she burned. Go back inside, he said, voice rough. We're leaving. But something had shifted. Irrevocably, they both felt it. The attack came in the parking garage. Kang-Dae walked ahead with Jin-Woo scanning their surroundings, hypervigilant as always. Hana followed in her heels and evening gown, exhausted from performing, from the emotional whiplash of the balcony. 3 men emerged from behind cars, professional, armed, not robbers, assassins. Jin-Woo moved first, engaging 2 of them with brutal efficiency. Kang-Dae became someone else entirely, not the CEO, not even the cold captor she'd come to know. This was the underworld king, moving with lethal grace, breaking a man's arm with clinical precision, putting another on the ground unconscious before Hana could fully process what was happening. The 3rd attacker got past Kang-Dae's defenses. Hana saw the knife, saw it arcing toward her in slow motion, knew she couldn't dodge in her gown and heels, knew this was how she died. Then Kang-Dae was there, taking the knife slash across his forearm instead, his other hand crushing the attacker's windpipe. The man dropped. Kang-Dae turned to Hana, bleeding, eyes wild. Are you hurt? Did they touch you? She shook her head, stunned, unable to form words. He'd taken a knife for her. Hadn't hesitated. Hadn't even thought about it. Jin-Woo called for cleanup and medical. Kang-Dae grabbed Hana's hand. His was shaking, whether from shock or adrenaline she couldn't tell, and pulled her to the car. He buckled her seatbelt himself, hands fumbling the clasp twice before getting it. During the tense drive back, Hana finally found her voice. You protected me. Kang-Dae stared out the window, his bleeding arm wrapped in his jacket. You're my property. I protect what's mine. But his voice lacked its usual conviction. They both heard it. Back at the penthouse, Hana refused to let him dismiss her. She brought the first aid kit, made him sit, carefully rolled up his bloody sleeve. The knife wound was deep but clean, missing anything vital. As she cleaned and bandaged him, their positions reversed, her standing over him, gentle hands on his skin. The intimacy was overwhelming. He watched her face, her concentration, the tiny furrow between her brows. Why are you doing this? He asked quietly. Because you saved my life. Hana didn't look up from her work. And because even monsters bleed. When she finished, Kang-Dae poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handed her one. They sat in the dim living room as the city lights sprawled below. And for the first time, they talked. Really talked. Not as captor and captive, but as 2 people carrying impossible weights. He asked about her life before. She told him about studying literature, about wanting to teach, about Min-Jun, and how her voice softened when she spoke of her brother. She asked about his rise to power. He spoke of the years after his father's death, working 3 jobs while finishing school, learning the tech industry from the ground up, discovering the underworld connections that could accelerate his revenge. Brilliance and brutality in equal measure. "Your father sent flowers to my father's funeral," Kang-Dae said quietly, staring into his glass. "White chrysanthemums. Do you know what that means in Korea? Mourning, but also apology. I was 17, standing at my father's grave, and I saw those flowers with your father's name on them. I realized he knew exactly what he'd done. He felt guilty. And that made you hate him more." Hana finished softly. "Yes, because guilt changes nothing. It doesn't bring anyone back." "So when does it end?" Hana set down her glass. "When is the revenge enough? You've taken his business, his reputation, his daughter. When do you let it go?" Kang-Dae looked at her with something like desperation. "I don't know. I built my entire life around destroying him. If I let it go, what am I?" Hana's answer was soft, but cut deep. "Free." They'd talked through the night. Dawn crept over Seoul, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Both were exhausted, emotionally raw, the barriers between them lower than they'd ever been. As Hana stood to go to her room, she paused. On impulse, she touched Kang-Dae's shoulder gently. "Thank you for protecting me tonight." He covered her hand with his, the touch lingering. "Get some rest, Hana." "Her name," said with softness instead of contempt. The sound of it in his voice made something in her chest crack open. After she left, Kang-Dae sat alone, staring at his bandaged arm. He'd protected her on instinct. Would have taken a bullet just as easily. The realization terrified him. She was supposed to be a weapon against her father. When had she become something precious instead? Something his? In her room, Hana lay in bed, unable to sleep. She touched her lips, remembering the moment on the balcony when she'd thought he would kiss her. She should hate him, her captor, her father's enemy, a man with blood on his hands. But all she could think about was his hand on her jaw, his body shielding hers from a knife, the vulnerability in his eyes when he'd spoken of his father. She was falling for the Ice King, and it was the most dangerous thing she'd ever done. Jin-woo arrived early the next morning, his expression grim. He showed Kang-Dae his phone, a message from Lee Sang-min, a photo of Hana from the gala, beautiful and devastating in her midnight gown. The caption read, "Exquisite taste indeed. How much for a night?" Kang-Dae's fist went through the wall. "He knows she's your weakness now," Jin-woo said quietly. "Last night made it obvious to everyone watching. He'll use her to get to you." Kang-Dae knew he should send her away. Back to her family. Somewhere safe. Somewhere she couldn't be used as leverage. But the thought of letting her go was physically painful, a visceral rejection that made no logical sense. He was in too deep. And so was she, whether she admitted it yet or not. He found Hana in the kitchen making coffee, still in sleep clothes, hair messy from restless sleep. She saw the hole in the wall immediately, his bloodied knuckles, and knew something had happened. "What's wrong?" Kang-Dae crossed the space between them in 3 strides and pulled her close. His arms came around her, tight and desperate, his face buried in her hair. It was the first time he'd held her like this, not possessively, but protectively. Like she was something precious that might be taken away. "You're in danger because of me," he said, voice muffled against her. "I should let you go, send you somewhere safe, but I can't. God help me, I can't." Hana's arms came around him slowly, tentatively. Her heart pounded against his chest. "Then don't." They stood like that as morning light filled the penthouse, 2 people clinging to each other in the wreckage of the revenge that was supposed to define them. Outside, Seoul woke to another day. Inside, everything had changed. The Ice King was thawing. And neither of them knew if that would save them or destroy them both. The warehouse in Incheon burned for 3 hours before the fire department could contain it. 2 of Kang-Dae's men died in the blaze, one crushed by collapsing beams, the other overcome by smoke before he could escape. Jin-woo delivered the news 2 days after the gala, his scarred face grim, holding his phone like evidence at a crime scene. Lee Sang-min's organization, he said simply. Declaration of war. Kang-Dae stared at the photos of the burned-out shell, at the names of the dead men. Both had families, both had been loyal, and felt the old rage crystallize into something cold and purposeful. Call everyone, he said. We meet tonight. The meeting took place in a private room above a restaurant Kang-Dae owned in Itaewon. 5 men who'd been with him since the beginning sat around a table scarred with cigarette burns and older violence. Jin-woo, Min-soo, the financial advisor with wire-rimmed glasses and a mind like a calculator. Yoon, the tech specialist who looked like a college student but could dismantle any digital security. Jae-hwan, the legal counsel who knew exactly which laws could be bent and which had to be broken. And Tae-yang, all muscle and scars, the kind of man who solved problems with his fists. We hit back, Tae-yang said immediately. Harder, make an example. Agreed, Jae-hwan added. He killed our men. We destroy his operations, send a message that we're not... I'm coming to this meeting. Every head turned. Hana stood in the doorway, dressed simply, but her chin was raised in that defiant way Kang-Dae had come to recognize, to admire. Hana, Kang-Dae started. If I'm your weakness, keeping me locked away won't change that, she interrupted, walking to the table. Let me help. His men exchanged glances. The boss didn't take advice, especially not from his companion. Everyone knew what she was, what she'd been bought for. Kang-Dae should have sent her away. Instead, he pulled out the chair beside him. Speak. Hana sat, feeling 5 pairs of eyes assess her. She met each gaze steadily before speaking. You're thinking like a gangster, but you're also a CEO. Fight him in the boardroom, not the streets. He's overextended on the Busan port deal. I learned that at the gala. Expose his corruption to his investors. Destroy him legally, publicly. It's cleaner and more permanent. Silence. Then Min-soo leaned forward, glasses catching the light. She's right. A gang war costs millions, draws police attention. But a hostile takeover, corporate espionage exposed, government investigations. We could dismantle his entire empire without firing a shot. Kang-Dae stared at Hana, seeing her differently. Not a pawn, a queen. Do it, he said. Both approaches. Min-soo, build a case for his investors. Yoon, I want every digital skeleton in Sang-min's closet. Tae-yang, hid his drug shipment at the port tomorrow night. He needs to know we're not backing down. He paused. Jin-woo, double security on Hana, if anything happens to her. He didn't finish. Everyone understood. The asset had become the boss's Achilles heel. That night, Yoon discovered chatter on the dark web. A bounty. 500 million won for Hana alive, 300 million dead. Posted by Lee Sang-min. Kang-Dae made the decision in seconds. We're leaving, now. Within an hour, they were in an SUV with tinted windows, Jin-woo driving, heading away from Seoul's neon sprawl. Hana had packed only essentials, moving on instinct and adrenaline. Kang-Dae was armed, tense, his hand never leaving his gun. They drove north into the mountains, the city lights fading behind them. The safe house sat isolated among pine forests, modern and fortified, equipped with security that would make a military installation jealous. Jin-woo stays in the guest house, Kang-Dae said as they entered. Close enough to respond, far enough to give us privacy. The main house was smaller than the penthouse, more intimate. 2 bedrooms, but Kang-Dae immediately said, You take mine, I'll use the couch. You're still healing from the knife wound, Hana protested. Non-negotiable. But he was wrong about one thing. Being alone together changed everything. over the next 2 days. As Kang-Dae coordinated his war against Sang-min remotely, a strange domesticity developed. Hana cooked because Kang-Dae was useless in the kitchen. They ate together, 3 meals a day, talking about nothing and everything. Without the trappings of his empire, without Seoul's weight pressing down, Kang-Dae seemed more human. She caught him smiling at something she said, watched him relax in ways he never had before. On the second evening, they sat by the fireplace. Early spring was still cold in the mountains. Kang-Dae worked on his laptop, coordinating the assault on Sang-min's empire. Hana pretended to read but couldn't focus. "If you succeed in destroying Sang-min," she said finally, "what happens to me?" Kang-Dae's fingers stilled on the keyboard. "What do you mean? Do I go back to being your revenge trophy? Or—" She couldn't finish. He set the laptop aside, moved to sit beside her on the floor in front of the fire. "Or what? Or do I get to choose what I am to you?" The question hung between them, vulnerable and terrifying. Kang-Dae cupped her face, the gesture becoming familiar, becoming necessary. "What do you want to be to me, Hana?" She took a shaky breath. "More than property. More than revenge, I want—" She met his eyes, those winter storm eyes that no longer felt cold. "I want what I see when you look at me when you think I'm not paying attention." His control, already frayed, snapped. "You want the truth?" His voice was rough, desperate. "I haven't been able to sleep in weeks because you're in the next room. I've killed men with my bare hands and never felt guilty. But the thought of you crying alone at night destroys me. I bought you to break you, and instead you've broken every rule I built my life around." His thumb traced her lower lip, the touch devastatingly gentle. "I bought your body to break your father, Hana. But looking at you now, I'd give up my soul just to hear you say my name without fear." Hana's breath caught. She reached up, covered his hand with hers. "Kang-Dae?" His name, soft and without fear. It undid him. He kissed her like a man drowning, desperate and consuming, one hand fisted in her hair while the other pulled her closer. Hana responded with equal fervor, months of tension and denied attraction igniting into something unstoppable. It wasn't gentle, it was possessive and passionate, her fingers digging into his shoulders, his teeth grazing her lower lip. Just as things threatened to spiral beyond kissing, his phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. Cursing, he checked the screen. His expression went from heated to deadly in a heartbeat. "Jinwoo. They found us. 3 vehicles approaching from the South Road. ETA 5 minutes. Move now." Kang-Dae was instantly in combat mode, pulling weapons from hidden compartments, guns, ammunition, body armor. He grabbed Hana's shoulders. "Panic room, basement. Now. I won't hide while you fight for me. If you die because of my revenge, I'll never forgive myself." Raw emotion cracked through his voice. "Please, Hana." The plea, more than the command, made her comply. Jinwoo met them at the basement entrance, already armed, already moving. The panic room was reinforced steel, equipped with monitors showing exterior camera feeds. He thrust a gun into Hana's hands. "Do you know how to use this?" She shook her head. "Quick lesson. Safety off. Point. Squeeze trigger. Expect kickback. If anyone who isn't me or the boss comes through that door, you shoot first and ask questions never." Then he was gone, and she was alone with monitors and a weapon and her thundering heart. On the screens, 3 black SUVs materialized from the forest road. At least 10 men poured out. Heavily armed, military-grade weapons, tactical gear. Professionals. Sang-min wasn't playing games anymore. Hana watched Kang-Dae and Jinwoo defend the house through the grainy monitors. It was brutal choreography. Kang-Dae moved like a ghost through rooms he knew intimately, using the layout to his advantage. 3 men down in the first 2 minutes. Jin-woo held the front entrance, a one-man blockade of violence and precision. But there were too many attackers. One of Sang-min's men used explosives to breach the back door. The monitor went static. Hana's heart stopped. She could hear gunfire above her getting closer, then fading. Footsteps, shouts, the terrible percussion of violence. Then silence. Suffocating, terrifying silence. The panic room door handle turned. Hana raised the gun, hands shaking so badly she could barely aim. Safety off, she reminded herself. Point, squeeze. The door opened. Kang-Dae stood there, covered in blood, some his, mostly not, looking like an avenging angel painted in crimson and vengeance. It's over. They're dead or running. He saw the gun in her trembling hands, her terrified expression, and crossed the room in 2 strides. He pulled her into his arms, and she collapsed against him, the gun clattering to the floor. She was shaking, or he was, or both of them were. "You're alive," she whispered against his chest. "You're alive." "I'm alive." His arms tightened around her. "And so are you. That's all that matters." Upstairs was a war zone. Bodies, blood, bullet holes in walls that would never be clean again. Jin-woo sat against the kitchen counter, pressing a cloth to a bullet graze on his ribs. Already on his phone calling for cleanup. Kang-Dae wouldn't let Hana see the worst of it. Within an hour, a team arrived. Efficient men who asked no questions, removed bodies, sanitized evidence. A doctor treated Jin-woo, then turned to Kang-Dae. "You're bleeding." "I'm fine." "You have a bullet in your thigh." "After," Kang-Dae said, pulling Hana closer. "After she's secured." They were taken to another safe house, this one in Busan on the coast. Only then did Kang-Dae allow treatment. He sat on the bed while the doctor worked, Hana beside him holding his hand. He gripped her so tightly she'd have bruises, but she didn't complain. When the doctor finally left, Kang-Dae pulled Hana onto the bed beside him, careful of his bandaged thigh. "I'm ending this tomorrow," he said quietly. "Sang-min went too far. I'm going to destroy him completely. His business, his reputation, his organization. But first, I need you to know something." He turned to face her fully, his hand cupping her cheek. "I was wrong. About everything. You're not revenge. You're not a weapon. You're not your father's sins. You're Hana, brilliant, stubborn, brave, beautiful Hana, and I'm completely, irrevocably in love with you. I don't deserve you, and I'll never be good enough for you, but I'm selfish enough to want you anyway." Hana's eyes filled with tears. "You stupid, impossible man. I've been in love with you for weeks. Even when I hated you, I loved you. Even when I was terrified, I saw you. The man who plays piano at 3 a.m. when he thinks no one can hear. The man who pays for his enemies' children's educations anonymously. The man who took a knife meant for me without hesitation." She kissed him, salt from her tears mixing with the kiss. "I'm yours, Kang-Dae. Not because you bought me, but because I choose you." That night they made love for the first time. Not the cold transaction Hana had once feared, but something passionate and tender and overwhelming. Kang-Dae worshipped every inch of her like she was sacred, and Hana gave herself completely, without reservation or fear. Afterward, lying tangled together, Kang-Dae traced patterns on her skin. "I've never said those words to anyone. I love you. I didn't think I was capable of it anymore after my parents died. You brought me back to life." Hana kissed his scarred knuckles. "Then let's both choose to live. Not for revenge, not for the past, for us, for the future." "When this is over," Kang-Dae said, "when Sang-min is destroyed and the threat is gone, I'm letting you go. Your debt is paid, your family is safe, you'll be free to choose, stay with me or walk away. No obligation, no ownership, just choice." Hana smiled against his chest. "I've already chosen, you fool. I'm not going anywhere." They talked through the night, planning the final strike. Hana contributed strategy, having learned to read the patterns of this world. Kang-Dae realized she'd become his true partner, not just in his bed, but in his empire. Together, they were formidable. The next morning, Kang-Dae executed his plan with surgical precision. Min-soo released a comprehensive dossier to Sang-min's investors and the Seoul prosecutor's office. Evidence of embezzlement, bribery, illegal dealings with North Korean entities, a career-ending accusation in South Korea. The financial world exploded within hours. Simultaneously, Taeyang led a strike on Sang-min's primary drug manufacturing facility in Gyeonggi Province. Not subtle, a message written in fire and destruction. The facility was razed, Sang-min's men scattered or arrested in a raid Kang-Dae had orchestrated through corrupt police contacts. Yoon hacked Sang-min's servers, releasing everything to the media. Affairs, hidden accounts, connections to organized crime. Within hours, Sang-min's legitimate facade crumbled. His stock plummeted. His board called emergency meetings. Prosecutors issued warrants. Then came the call Kang-Dae had been expecting. "Meet me." Sang-min's voice was desperate, barely controlled. "Alone, or I'll release information about your father's death. How you were there. How you could have stopped it but didn't. How you let him die to fuel your revenge." A bluff. Kang-Dae had been at school when his father died, but Sang-min was betting on psychological warfare, on old wounds reopening. "Fine," Kang-Dae said. "Incheon Warehouse District, 1 hour." He wasn't going alone. Hana insisted on coming, and Jinwoo and Taeyang would be hidden as backup. They met at an abandoned warehouse, the same port where Kang-Dae's facility had burned. Poetic symmetry. Sang-min arrived disheveled, his empire crumbling around him in real time. 2 bodyguards flanked him, but they looked nervous, like men who knew they were backing a losing bet. "You've destroyed everything I built," Sang-min said, and Hana was surprised to hear genuine anguish in his voice. "For what? Pride? A woman?" He looked at Hana with undisguised contempt. "She's a whore you bought at auction. She means nothing." Kang-Dae's voice was ice. "She means everything, and that's the difference between us, Sang-min. You see people as tools. I learned that from you. Used it to build my empire. But she taught me I was wrong." He stepped forward. "You tried to kill her. You put a bounty on an innocent woman's head. For that alone, I'd destroy you 10 times over." Sang-min laughed bitterly. "Innocent. Your precious Hana is the spawn of the man who destroyed your family. Does she know you bought her specifically to torture her father? That every kindness was manipulation?" He was trying to plant doubt, to fracture their bond. Hana stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. "I know everything. I know why he bought me, what I was supposed to be to him. And I know he fell in love with me anyway, despite himself. That's real. What you're trying to do? It's pathetic." The words hit harder than any physical blow. Kang-Dae signaled Jinwoo. "The prosecutors will be here in 10 minutes. I've given them your location, along with evidence of your involvement tonight. Recorded, by the way." He tapped his phone. "You came here armed, with known criminals to threaten a legitimate businessman and his companion. You're finished, Sang-min. Not with a bullet, but with handcuffs and a prison cell. That's the revenge I choose." Police arrived exactly when promised. Sang-min was arrested, screaming threats that dissolved into pathetic pleas. Kang-Dae and Hana watched impassively as he was dragged away. Jinwoo murmured, "It's done, boss. His organization will collapse without him. You've won." Won. The word felt strange, hollow, because Kang-Dae realized the victory wasn't destroying Sang-min. It was the woman standing beside him, choosing him freely. 1 month later, Seoul had returned to normalcy. Kang-Dae's empire was stronger than ever. Sang-min awaited trial on dozens of charges, and the underworld had accepted the new power structure. The threat was over. They returned to the penthouse, but it felt different. Hana had redecorated. Plants on the windowsills, books scattered across surfaces, photographs of them together. Small markers of life actually lived instead of just endured. Kang-Dae pretended to complain about the clutter, but secretly loved every change. One evening, he handed her an envelope. Inside was the original contract, the one that had made her his property. It's voided, destroyed legally. Your family's debt is permanently erased, your brother's medical care is funded through a trust, and your parents have been relocated to a better apartment. He paused. You're free, Hana, completely free. Hana set the contract aside. And if I want to stay? Kang-Dae crossed the room, cupping her face in his hands. Then you stay as my equal, my partner, my love. Not as property, but as the woman who saved me from becoming the monster I was turning into. If you'll have me. Hana pulled him down for a kiss. I'll have you. All of you. The CEO, the underworld king, the broken boy who lost his parents, the man who plays piano when he can't sleep. I'll have every part of you, Kang-Dae, if you'll have all of me in return. They talked about the future. Hana wanted to finish her degree, maybe work in his legitimate operations. Kang-Dae was already planning to move away from the underworld that had nearly cost him everything. They visited her family together. Her father wept when he saw them, relief and shame warring on his face. Kang-Dae faced the man who'd destroyed his father and felt nothing. The revenge that once consumed him was ash now, replaced by something better. He shook the man's hand. Your daughter is extraordinary. You raised someone remarkable. Forgiveness, not for the father, but for himself. Minjun recovered well from his surgery. He was wary of Kang-Dae at first, but warmed when offered an internship. Your sister says you're good with computers. If you're interested, there's a place for you. Minjun's eyes lit up. Hana squeezed Kang-Dae's hand, grateful beyond words. 6 months later, Hana woke to find Kang-Dae's side of the bed empty. She found him on the balcony, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise over Seoul. Couldn't sleep. She wrapped her arms around him from behind. He covered her hands with his. I was thinking about the night I bought you. How I thought I was buying a weapon. How arrogant I was. How certain I knew what I was doing. He turned to face her. You were supposed to be my revenge. Instead, you became my redemption. I don't know what I did to deserve you, Hana, but I'm grateful every day that you chose to stay. Hana smiled, the sunrise gilding her features. You gave me a choice. That's what changed everything. You could have kept me in that cage, but you opened the door. I stayed because of who you became, not who you were. Kang-Dae reached into his pocket, pulled out a small velvet box. Then stay forever. Not as my property, not as my companion, as my wife, my partner, my equal in every way. He opened it to reveal a diamond ring, simple and elegant. Marry me, Hana. Choose me again, and I'll spend every day proving you made the right choice. Hana's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and they kissed as Seoul woke around them. A city that once represented his vengeance, now witnessing his greatest triumph. Love chosen freely, not bought with blood money. They stood together, watching the city that almost destroyed them both, now spread before them like a promise. The gilded cage was gone. In its place, freedom, love, and a future they'd build together, one choice at a time. Kang-Dae pulled Hana close, his lips against her temple. I love you. She leaned into him, complete and unchained. I love you too. My Ice King. My choice. My home. So, what did you think about the story? If you enjoyed it, feel free to drop a comment. I honestly love reading your thoughts. I'll be back with a new story soon. Bye for now.